Oh. That was a way to start.
Well, I ran into it, to be fair. Welcome back to the Talk Nerdy With Me podcast. We are your hosts, Brittany and Adam, and we're finally back at it after an unplanned hiatus. And we're talking about Loki. We'd been planning on doing full episode recaps like we did with WandaVision and, most of the other shows, but we were moving, I got sick. Those are the big ones, really.
Pretty much, and that took a lot of time altogether.
Yeah.
So we're going to be playing probably catch-up for a little bit, but we had to talk about Loki almost immediately after it ended. So we're even a little late on that, but we are very excited.
We're definitely excited. Excuse the background. I don't know what it's going to look like right now, just because obviously this is the first in the new filming area. But I'm still excited. We're just going to be doing a whole series recap, just talking about our thoughts, maybe potentially what we think will be in season 2 and stuff like that, and how this affects the Marvel universe. Just as a side note, we will be covering the Black Widow movie as well in another episode, so just look forward for that. But
and we forgot about Shadow and Bone, so sorry.
Oh yeah.
Sorry about
to
that.
be fair, I still haven't watched.
I watched it a couple times.
The season finale,
but hopefully, if we get, if we have time at some point, we can talk about it too.
Yeah, that's totally true.
But Shadow and Bone came out right as the time we were leading up to the move, so I ended up being able to watch it twice. And then once she finally started, we actually had to get out. So
because he likes to watch things in the background, and I don't. I need full attention on things. So I still haven't even watched that. Yeah. But anyways, back to the topic at hand, Loki. Oh god, this was really good. This was really, really good.
Yeah, I feel like the recency bias with every one of these shows is we're going to start this by saying this is the best one yet. But, I think this might have actually been the best one.
Okay, no, I'm still really, really partial to WandaVision. You know that.
Yeah, it just we keep saying all the series are different, but
they're very
I think
different.
because of that is, how we rate them a little bit different compared to each other. But I think this one was unique in such a way that was different from WandaVision, which was just as cool. You know what I mean?
You know what I think is the difference in between the last two series, so Falcon and the Winter Soldier and WandaVision versus Loki, is that those ones I feel had a lot more to do with inner turmoil, and Loki obviously did as well. It definitely discussed his personality and why he's the way he is, but I would say that Loki is way more like the movies.
Yeah,
it had a way bigger focus on the plot, and it was fast action, and it was character driven, but plot driven too.
I noticed that the whole time because I feel even though it was a Loki show, I just didn't really learn anything about him. You know what I mean? It didn't really do too much for him except give him that slight redemption arc to make himself a different person. But even hey,
cats are fighting. Don't knock over the camera.
But even then, it felt so small. You know what I mean?
In comparison to the other two series, I agree. I think that we have a better understanding of Loki and how he works now. I loved just the introduction of the female Loki, obviously, because it really was just showing such a difference between all the male versions of Loki and the one singular female. And I thought that was funny, but like you said, we didn't learn nearly as much, I think, about Loki and his mental state as we did about all the other characters.
It was just funny because I feel they did it so quickly that you just kind of got over that. You know what I mean? We spent a couple episodes both with Sam and with Wanda understanding their history, and with him it was we're gonna play this fast forward of your life, and then we'll see how you take that and see what you can grow from it.
I like that he took it though. You know what I mean? I was really nervous about how they were going to do the whole this is a Loki out of time, and we know the Lokis from the movies, so I was nervous how they were going to bring that all together to mesh, because I was hoping obviously that he's going to end up being in the later movies. And I like that he just kind of took it, and then he really did reference it thoroughly throughout the entire series. That made me think that he was the original Loki that we had, But, to be fair, he lived eons, so it was going to be a lot harder to get a big idea of Loki.
Right.
So I can kind of see why we didn't get as much time, but I felt this whole series was rushed. I could have done with 2 more episodes. A nice even 8.
Yeah, it was weird because I definitely could have, but I think if it was longer, it would have just been more Easter eggy. I think the story actually got what it needed out of.
Oh no, I think so too, but that's what I'm saying. I think that if we'd had the first 2 episodes be way more on Loki and his mental state instead of jumping directly into the plot. But I can also see why they couldn't do that. because he's a variant, and the only reason they weren't executing him was because of the plot.
Yeah.
You know,
I just feel like he doesn't actually have that much we need to, just because we've seen so much of him in the other movies.
True.
Like through Thor, it's like that's literally who he is. He's Thor's brother, who's the troublemaker. You know, the god of mischief, who just keeps double-crossing everybody. You know what I mean? And obviously, we still saw that early in the episode, too.
Yeah.
But that's what going into the series, I really, I was excited because it sounded so cool, but I honestly never really liked Loki as a character.
Well,
I thought he was so annoying. He always dies, and he's always magically alive, and I thought that...
He was pissed.
I thought this series was not just the Tesseract version, but I thought the one at the end of Infinity War... Sure. I thought that Loki ended up surviving, and I thought this was also him and that Loki maybe meeting up and, you know, being escaped Lokis together.
No, but like he hid in the debris like
exactly.
the old man Loki.
No, yeah, but that's what my fear was. I was just like, some people need to die at some point. You know what I mean? And for Loki to fake his death so many times is just kind of annoying.
Yeah.
And
no, I mean, I remember very clearly when we saw that there was going to be a Loki series, when all of the first, like the stage 4 stuff was being announced. Is this stage 4?
Phase 4, yeah.
Phase 4, right. And I was hyped because I've been pissed that Loki died right when I was really starting to... I mean, I already liked him, but, like, I loved him. I liked that he was getting a redemption arc and was, like, part of the team. And I was so sad that he died. So I was really excited when the series came out and that it was announced that there was going to be something with him in it. And I remember how pissed you were. You were like, are you kidding me? And I was like, this is going to be great. You're like, I want him to just die. Some people just need to die. Yeah. And I was so bummed because I was hyped about it. So I'm glad that you ended up liking it a lot.
Definitely. Well, I mean...
especially because you hate time travel. Like, this was like the mix of two things that you already hate. Yeah. Loki and time travel.
Mm-hmm. Here's the thing, I don't hate Loki, but like I said, with the characters dying thing, like that's always been a problem with Marvel, is that out of the entire Infinity Saga, we have Black Widow, who in theory had to kind of kill herself, you know what I mean? Like, because of the Soul Stone.
Yeah.
We had Quicksilver, who died. Is that it? And then Iron Man, Captain America, kind of.
Sure.
Like, we're at a list of about 4 people. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So it's just like, with how much happens,
I know,
but with
in
how
the
much
comics,
happens, you need a little bit of realism, and some people just need to die for the sake of, like, hey, these guys aren't literally...
Well, you were also never, like, truly a fan of Loki. Like, you respected his character, but, like,
I just thought he was annoying.
Yeah.
Like, and it's funny, too, because I love Tom Hiddleston. I think he's a great actor and plays the role well, but the actual character of Loki and how they use him is just always so, like... annoying. It's just too repetitive. Does that make sense?
No,
He's so predictable.
I get it. I know exactly. Like, we've had this discussion a lot because I know that you respect his character, but that, like, you're just not... You find him predictable. Yeah. Exactly. That's the best way to put it.
And going into this show, too, my biggest fear going into this is that it was going to be the Marvel equivalent of what they try to do in Legends of Tomorrow, which is a DC series.
I never saw Legends of Tomorrow, so I don't really have any background on it.
Yeah, and in a way, it's pretty similar, because what happens in Legends of Tomorrow is they end up, time traveling to different points, but they end up having to pretty much blow up the people that are in charge of time. It was kind of... it's been a while since I saw it, but that's in theory what that show was about. Which
is pretty much a good theory of what's happening in Loki.
Pretty much, yeah. Like honestly, they were pretty similar. This one, we keep talking about like the multiverse side of this. It's still pretty confusing, and I really hope they do some explanation, because as far as like the sacred timeline goes, the multiverse now, it's all pretty just, we're gonna kind of think we know what's going on, but we really don't. Like, I've tried to do so much research.
Well, no, from the start, do you remember, it was the first episode. We watched the first episode together, and right off the bat, you're like, no, there's still a multiverse. Mm-hmm. There's just still a sacred timeline in each multiverse. And I'm like, no, I think that this is hinting in this version that there is no multiverse, that there's a singular timeline. And then you were talking about how could there be different kinds of Lokis if there was only one multiverse? And I was like, no, that's the point, is that they're getting rid of them when they change.
Right.
And I think that ultimately that ended up being correct in like this form. But you know what I was thinking today? I think the reason that as Marvel fans, everyone has already maybe gotten used to the idea of a multiverse, or like known the word, I think, for a long time, is literally because of X-Men.
Yeah.
No, because of like the feud between like Fox and like Disney and everything like that.
Oh, so we've been calling it like the different verses and stuff like that.
Right, because we're like, oh, they're not connected because it can't be connected, because obviously Disney can't own X-Men yet. I mean, now they do. But I think that's why maybe we were always so used to the idea of multiverse, but they never, ever mention multiverse in the movies.
Well,
like,
I think they did. I'm pretty sure they mentioned it in Doctor Strange.
Oh, no, they did in Doctor Strange.
Mentioned it, yeah.
She did in Doctor Strange. I actually saw a TikTok on that.
Okay.
It was weird because someone was like, see how in Infinity War, when they visit the Ancient One, she talks about a singular movement of time and pulling out the Infinity Stone. But I think the way they described it was a little off because if the Infinity Stone doesn't come back to the timeline, obviously that's the problem. Right. She wasn't talking about multiverses in that aspect, but they were like, but when Doctor Strange is introduced to her life, that's when she knows there can no longer be a singular timeline and there's going to be more outcomes. So she explains the multiverse to him.
Well, because I also think there's a point in, I think it was the beginning of Infinity War, when Iron Man meets Doctor Strange and Wong. I'm pretty sure when Wong does that like big cosmic example, he says the Infinity Stones are spread into the multiverse, and I thought that's why we were like, oh, there's different versions, like everything is a different variable of what could happen, but it's still never made clear. That's the thing.
You're totally right. He does say multiverse, and it doesn't make sense.
Exactly.
But, so I saw another theory. It is apparently confirmed that this does take place in 2012. So the reason that everyone's talking about a multiverse and throughout all the movies and everything is because this happened before. Yeah. Like, we've been living in the multiverse version of the world this entire time, and that's why there's been talk of it, and the TVA is now talking about how there's only a singular timeline. So I thought that was a good theory.
Yeah, it's like an extra layer that just makes everything more complicated, though.
It definitely does, yeah.
So we'll probably skip over that, but just to try and like dumb down what we think is like the sacred timeline,
we're
and then
both kind
where
of
we're at
still
now.
Not on the same playing field, though.
I think we are now, are we?
Are we?
Because, when they explained a sacred timeline, what she told me now is that there was one proper flow of time, on this continuous loop, and each time, as it's going through, there are certain variables. Like, Loki comes out as a girl. That was actually her variable, like you told me. I was skeptical about that at first. I thought it was something else, and this was just the girl Loki did something, but her coming out as a girl was her variable.
Well, no, because, it was in episode 6, or the last episode, obviously. I think that was the final confirmation, because I've been trying to explain it to you like that for a while, but she mentions at one point in episode 6, basically, I was pruned before you ever even existed, and the way that I see that is that it means that all of these different versions of the variables, there wasn't multiple universes, it was just that they kept redoing it until they got the right version. Right. So yeah, she literally, in my head, existed before Loki that we know, and she was pruned, and then everyone was pruned until finally we have the one that we have now.
Yeah, and then this also makes sense too, because again, if there is that one flow, then you have the old Loki who explained, no, like, I survived the interaction with Thanos because I cloned myself, and so, it's all supposed to be one singular timeline, but the end of this,
well, because it's still an infinite loop. You're still like being in any, like, in the TVA, it's out of time, so like you're in any part of time. So I guess theoretically Loki could be from like the way future in comparison to other people, or other people can be from the past, like, it's kind of confusing.
Yeah, definitely. But
I'm not a physicist.
From the end of it, what we can assume is that Sylvie killing the one who remains is what actually starts the multiverse. Right. So that's 100% what it looked like from there. We see, all the timelines freaking out. You see the actual branches in space or whatever that was. They're all freaking out and intertwining. It looks like
neuron synapses, and I was like, it totally does.
It does, yeah. And so, in theory, this is what starts the multiverse, which again contradicts what we already thought, because we thought it's been existing this whole time.
But that's also like the confusion behind it, because even the one who remains mentions when he's gonna get killed, he's like, what's the worst that can happen? Either you're gonna take over my role and like continue my life's work, or you're gonna kill me, and then there's gonna be another war, another multiverse war, and then I'm gonna end up in this exact same spot because reincarnation, baby. Right. Or something like that. Yeah. So like, it's happened an infinite amount of times, which is weird, because that means that technically the way that we're going down now has already happened.
Yeah, I think that's the craziest thing that like hurts about any type of like time travel kind of deal. It's like Kang is from the future, but he's controlling the past. Does that make sense?
I hate it. I told you too that I thought it was funny that he even mentioned to the two Lokis, he's like, look at you, 2 versions of the same coin, or whatever it is, 2 Lokis. And I'm like, he's met all of his versions. Like, by the time that we've met him, he's already met all the other versions of himself, had that war, and then came out on top because of whatever that monster's name is. Eliath,
yeah.
Like Goliath, I get it.
Yeah. So we didn't get an after credit scene, which is obviously a bummer. They did confirm a season 2, which is great.
That was wild. I didn't expect it.
The season 2?
No.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But what I thought would have been the perfect ending, and this is a total long shot, never would have happened, but as we saw the multiverse spread out, we were actually watching it over FaceTime because she was sick at the time.
Yeah.
But I told her, I'm like, do you know how crazy it would have been if the after credits scene would have been each of the 3 Spider-Men just doing their own thing?
No, I told you. You're stealing
What, you said it?
I said that because I told
she
you.
said it.
I said that it would be freaking wild if we went straight from the ending of Loki before Loki even started. Like we started the episode, I was telling you how crazy would it be that Spider-Man's supposed to come out in December. There's still no trailer for it, is what I was saying, and I was like, that's pretty crazy. What if the ending of Loki was the trailer for Spider-Man?
Yeah. And so the thing about Spider-Man, what?
Thief.
Oh, I thought I said it, but I guess I was too tired. But the crazy thing about Spider-Man, if you haven't heard or like the rumors about it lately, they're bringing in villains from the old one, the old Doc Ock, Electro, like the actors. And then, of course, they're trying to bring in Tobey Maguire and Andrew Garfield.
I mean, technically, their names are already on there.
So you can't trust Google as far as casting. But like, it's
no,
been
it was
heavily...
like IMDb or something.
You can't trust that either.
True.
Not until the movie comes out.
True.
But no, it's been heavily rumored. And it was funny because this whole time, especially after WandaVision, we were all just like, oh, WandaVision's what puts us in the multiverse of madness. Like, that was locked in everyone's head. We're like, we don't really know who the villain's going to be. But she's going to interact with Doctor Strange, you know? And now after this, we're like, wait a second. This is why we're in Multiverse of Madness.
Yeah.
It is 100% because of this.
I mean,
you know?
It's kind of funny because everyone just assumed that Scarlet Witch was going to be the one that went crazy
Yeah.
and that started everything. And like, Marvel really said, bish, you thought.
Yeah.
You thought it was going to be Wanda, but she's going to have to come in and save the day. You know who really messed it up? Loki.
Well, Sylvie. Sylvie is the new Star-Lord until further notice.
What? Why?
Well, because Star-Lord messed up killing Thanos, and then she messed up saving the timeline.
Yeah, but she had a lot of baggage. I mean, and I totally thought it was hilarious because him looking at Sylvie and being like, grow up, Sylvie. Because it's true. She's really hung up on the fact that she was pruned, but like, that was like the necessary evil. And he even goes, he's like, we're all villains here.
Yeah.
Like, you're a murderous, like, traitorous person. We're all villains. And I was like, yeah, you are, Sylvie. Why are you still hung up on this?
Yeah. But it's crazy. You know, going into the Multiverse of Madness, I have no clue what to expect, but this like threw all of our ideas completely out the window because I was telling her actually just earlier today, it's hard to picture anybody else being the focal point, like villain wise, in any of these upcoming movies, just because of
Wait, sorry. Backtracking a minute. You said we didn't get an after credit scene, but we totally did. There was one. There was just not 2.
No, it was only the...
No, it was Loki.
2.
It was Loki running through the TVA. That was after, like, it ended, technically.
Not really. No, that was just... No,
when he ran through the TVA...
That wasn't before the... That was before the credits, though. When he went to talk with Mobius?
I could have sworn. Anyways, either way, that was a scene that was like vital also to the whole idea that the multiverse already obviously exists.
Oh yeah, and that gave me total Planet of the Apes vibes when he finally looked up at the statue.
No, see, I was in like a psychological thriller when that happened.
Yeah.
I was hyped. I was like screaming over FaceTime. He's like, what happened? What did I miss? And I was like, that was wild. And you were like, I didn't think so.
Yeah, not really.
They
did a good job making like ominous because it went from the 3 statues to just the 1 in that final scene.
Well, no, it was just crazy in general. Like that whole scene was so wild because you think that he's finally back with Mobius in his timeline, and Mobius just gives him that look, and he's like, "Well, who are you?
Who are you?
Yeah, like you're an analyst, right?" Like that was crazy. Like that, like how do you even get back to your normal timeline? Like how did the temp pads work now? You know, it was just I was freaking the hell out.
Yeah.
But we were talking about Multiverse of Madness, and that was what reminded me.
What was his nickname? He Who Remains.
Yeah.
He Who Remains.
Yes, He Who Remains.
So He Who Remains, we can all pretty much assume is Kang the Conqueror, a version of him.
Yes.
This one we think is closer to Immortus because it's...
Well, he said Kang. His name is Kang.
He didn't say Kang. It was not name dropped at any point.
Yes, he did.
No, he didn't. He only referred to himself as the Conqueror. He like listed all the things that he is, but he never once called himself Kang.
I could have sworn he did, but
No.
I guess not.
No, it was just an obvious heavy assumption from everyone. I'm like almost positive.
I thought he said it like when they were going up the elevator and stuff like that.
Yeah, we can check, but I'm like 90% positive.
Yeah, maybe.
So, but He Who Remains, again, he's a variant of Kang.
Well, He Who Remains in the comics is not Kang.
It's Immortus.
Yeah.
Who's a version of Kang.
No.
Yes.
I thought I saw somewhere that it's actually 2 separate characters.
There's a couple different versions.
Okay.
Like, with everything.
Right.
But there is a version of Kang called Mortis. And Mortis is considered like the goodist. version, like the best version,
The
like
nicest,
like good side,
the most humane.
kind of. So like, because his goal here in his head, he is controlling the timeline for peace. He thinks that if all the other Kangs are in charge, then it's just a multiversal war that ends in complete oblivion.
He just knows that all his other versions are really bad.
Right. So
and they're all like looking out for oblivion. Like all of his other versions want the world to end.
Yeah.
And he doesn't.
Which is always such a crazy thing. You know what I mean? Like,
yeah.
When power is just at its utmost, like, peak, it's just the end of everything. But with Kang, obviously, he's taking away free will. And that's like probably one of the worst things a villain can do, you know what I mean? But in his eyes, he is doing this for everybody else's safety, so people can still live a life.
Theoretically what Thanos does too? Like, he's just, like, removing the idea of probability. Yeah. It was him, like, getting rid of half the people, and he's doing it for the betterment of the world, things like that. But I was mentioning to you earlier that we were talking about the trailer for the What If series, and how it has a lot to do with the Watchers, and how it just obviously feels very, very much like Stan Lee. They've mentioned before that, like, he could potentially be a Watcher. And I think it's funny that you talk about free will with the Marvel Universe, because theoretically in the What If series, they're almost talking about the Watchers as the writers of the story, which obviously Stan Lee created the baby that is the Marvel Universe. Right. And so theoretically, none of them do have free will.
Right.
And Deadpool always talks about that. Like, with the breaking of the fourth wall, he's like, you guys are just playing your parts and things like that. So it's just funny because, like, totally, exactly, I know what you mean. But also, they never had free will to begin with.
Yeah, there's a Deadpool series on that. Yeah. But, and it's funny because, just a quick note on that, like, Stan Lee has always been joked as a Watcher, but I think was it Doctor Strange?
It was never... Oh, like,
one of the movies had him on, like, the moon, and he was talking with the Watchers, and it was just hilarious.
I think it was Doctor Strange.
Because that's been the rumor that this whole time, because obviously he's been, like, the X-Men movies and stuff, too.
Oh, yeah.
They always said, Stan Lee was a Watcher who has been observing the multiverse, and... Wasn't he in Big Hero 6 too? Oh yeah. If you've never seen Big Hero 6, I highly recommend it, but watch and skip all the way to the end credits afterwards, and he's in that as well, which is awesome. I didn't even know it was coming, and we just watched all the way one time. We were like, wait, what?
It was great.
So, but but what we were saying about Kang is that he is terrifying. Like, this
as a villain. Well, he's incredibly intelligent. Like, even the way that he describes, like, how he uses Alioth's power. Like, so what we learned is that the TVAs, like, Tempads and everything, all of the magic, I guess, that goes into, like, the time stuff is Alioth's power. And Alioth only came about because of, like, what was it? Like, tears in the multiverse during the war. So, like, that to me was crazy. Because, like, I don't know, you would assume that Kang has some kind of, like, powers of his own, but he doesn't. He's just really smart. Well,
he has powers, doesn't he?
When he described it, he didn't describe himself as having powers. He only describes, like, being a scientist.
Yeah. He's a pretty confusing character, honestly. Like,
I don't know much about him from the comics.
I've tried to do so much research on him, and it's
I
just...
haven't.
Yeah, he's pretty difficult. There's a version of him that's, like, a great descendant of Reed Richards, named Nathaniel Richards. It's very confusing. But... he's terrifying. Like, he is so much scarier than Thanos, just because he's, in theory, lived every timeline. Like, he knows he's all-knowing in a sense,
Well, this, like, the one who remains is, but the other versions of him, no.
But if the other ones of him are capable of taking over the entire universe, then...
Eventually they would know, but... What we can go off right now is the idea that all of those had been pruned, so now these are fresh ones that don't know about the end of time.
Yeah, it's so funny how they just keep coming. Like, I'm so confused on what this, like, Kang factory is, or whatever.
We always joked that it was like a Rick and Morty situation, the Ricks 100%. And Mortys and the Council of Ricks.
Yeah, I absolutely got Rick and Morty vibes from this.
Yeah. I mean, the variants in general, the whole idea behind it was so funny.
Well, the Council of Ricks is actually joked off the Council of Reeds. That's
right. Okay. So the Council of, like, Reed Richards.
Reed Richards is actually what that was pulled from in Rick and Morty.
I think you said that to me before.
Yeah, and so that's kind of what we're hoping we'll get at some point here is, like, the Council of Reeds, once we get Fantastic Four introduced, will need us, need to help us kind of take over the Council of Kangs or whatever.
Sure.
Everybody just gets their own council.
Well, because the Kangs, like, it was so, like, interesting to hear how he talked about the initial meeting of himself. Because it was all very pure, he was like, yeah, we just wanted to, like, help each other out and give each other, like, the information that we had and better our universes and everything. And it was like, yeah, that's so wholesome. And then it's just one of his versions just got too greedy. And then all of his versions have that tendency to get way too greedy. So it was just, he's really the reason for the need for a singular timeline. And, like, he's the reason that you can never have peace if you have a multiverse, which is hilarious to think of. Especially if he doesn't end up having powers, like, because he never described them. It would just be funny.
It's really fascinating how he talked about the multiversal war, because that's something that happened in the future.
Right.
So, again, this is something that's confusing. It's because it happened way later.
He lives in the future.
Right, and now is, controlling the past. But from what I've gathered from that battle and from where they're going with this is that they're trying to incorporate a Secret Wars storyline, which after Infinity War, I said this was going to be the next thing they were going to do. But I thought this was going to take, like, 10, 15 years for them to, like, try. Because the Secret Wars, like, there's a couple different versions, but the most recent is extremely confusing.
Well, Secret Wars, wasn't that what you mentioned at the end of WandaVision? Where Miss Marvel... Was it Miss Marvel?
So that's Secret Invasion.
Oh my god.
Too many secrets.
So many secrets, so many wars.
Secret Invasion is where you have Skrulls that are, posing as public figures, heroes and stuff, and they're kind of taking over something from the inside.
All right.
Secret Wars is when you have different multiversal timelines converging, and when they converge, only one gets left. So each multiverse's heroes say, like, we want to protect everyone, but we need to protect ourselves.
Sure.
And it turns into everyone trying to figure out how to protect their own timeline, where eventually, I think it's Dr. Doom says, I'm doing this myself, and puts everything into one. So he puts, like, all the timelines into one, and they end up in what's called Battle World. And from there, honestly, it gets pretty confusing, but that's, like, pretty much how it starts with the timelines converging.
Interesting. So, that is kind of, I guess, like, what He Who Remains was mentioning. But, because at the end, obviously, we have the timeline with Mobius and everything, and he's saying, like, he's mentioning some greater power. And then when you pan over to the statue, I hadn't realized, because obviously, right off the bat, you know that it was the guy that they were just talking to, He Who Remains.
Yeah.
But the outfit is of Kang the Conqueror, not of He Who Remains. So that was just, like, an interesting moment, because that means that it had already diverged enough that there's a Kang the Conqueror in the TVA.
And the actor who played him was awesome. I was not expecting that kind of version of him. Like, when they got into that tower, I was like, shit's about to go down. Like, we're going to see, the colored Kang. He's, like, got that green and purple suit.
Quirky villains.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Like, the funny, quirky ones that are just, like, sitting there kind of, like, doing their own thing and being a little weird. Those are my favorite kinds of villains. Him just eating the apple.
Yeah, and it's just funny because you just see, you're like, this person is...
a person.
Apparently, he's a person, but at this point, he's all-powerful. And he's just some crazy old man, is what it seems like.
That's my favorite.
I thought
it's
kind
of like how they did Lucifer in a way. Yeah.
Yeah, I thought it was just a really cool spin they put on it. And then obviously we're going to see much scarier ones later. What was interesting, and this whole time, we weren't sure if it was actually going to be Kang or not. I think we were pretty sure, but there's, we said Mephisto was going to be in WandaVision, and then clearly that didn't happen. I was pretty sure it was either going to be a version of Loki who did this all,
right,
or Kang.
I was leaning on the Kang theory. That was my favorite theory.
Yeah, I just didn't think that, because he was confirmed as the villain in Ant-Man 3, so we knew he was going to be coming at some point.
Oh, I didn't.
But going into the last episode, I was like, there's no way they can just introduce him and then kill him, or, like, you know what I mean? Give us any type of closure. And they did. They did it really well. He got introduced, and we set up everything from this, which is just crazy.
Yeah. No, I mean, I definitely, it was my favorite theory all along, was, like, the Kang the Conqueror kind of thing, and I like how they did it. I really like, I mean, they attempted to explain the movement of time to, the massive fans of Marvel, and it still makes almost no sense, which makes sense, because obviously physicists spend their entire lives trying to understand it. But I think that they did a really good job, and I think that it was cool that Kang is more of a scientist, not, like, a magician of some kind or anything like that. It was just a very, grounded in reality version of time. I kept saying that to you, and I know you don't agree, but I really feel that way.
It's almost like a contradiction, but, like, I see what you're trying to say. They did a good way of, like, watering it down, so we could definitely, like, try to understand it.
Well, I just felt like so many, like, when you go with time travel, I feel like a lot of times TV shows are just kind of like, magic, it's like a break in reality, or like they do like the most random explanations. It's a rip in the fabric of time. What does that mean? And I think that Marvel did a good enough job in being like, this is how time kind of works, and we're gonna kind of try and stick to those rules. They tried to stick to rules in a thing that doesn't have a lot of laws.
Yeah.
Yeah,
I get again, I get way too critical, so I try to, like, I'll critique here and there, but I really just try to block all of it out and just let it happen because, I don't know, it's just so easy for it to get convoluted, and you're always going to find some kind of loophole, so, like, you just kind of let it happen, you know what I mean?
Oh, I told you that.
Unless it's Legends of Tomorrow, then it's absolutely terrible.
I told you that. I said that you just have to, like, go with the flow with it because it's never going to make any sense.
Just hop on and enjoy the ride.
Yeah, just enjoy it, and it makes it way more fun. I think that we had a lot of fun watching Loki.
We did.
Maybe because we weren't... I mean, I know you still obviously watched Easter eggs and things like that, but we weren't as, like, in-depth doing that kind of research. Like, we weren't looking for the Easter eggs. We weren't looking into the comics that it's based off of.
It was just weird because this didn't really have as much as you would have thought. Like, they had some big ones. Like, obviously,
in comparison to WandaVision, nothing.
An episode, it was either 4 or 5, but we got Throg. Throg exists. So
oh, no. So,
Throg
actually, I was reading that wasn't Throg.
Yeah, it was. It was a whole deleted scene with him.
It's a different... Sorry.
Frog Thor?
No, it's Frog Thor, but Throg is a different character.
Oh, got you.
Yeah. So I got confused.
Because Frog Thor, that version of Thor is just enchanted into a frog.
Right, and Throg is a different character.
He is?
Yeah.
Wow, I didn't know it was a lie.
No, it was just I watched a TikTok on it.
Yeah.
I really like this one guy that does Easter eggs. I've shown you a few of his videos. I'll try and remember what his name is, and I'll link him below if you guys want to watch him.
But yeah, no, so the one, when we finally got to, was it the Void? Is that what they called it?
The Void?
What was that place they got sent to when they got pruned?
Oh, the End of Time.
The End of Time. So the End of Time is where
the Void at the End of Time. I think you're right.
Is that what it was called?
Yeah.
That's pretty much where we got all of our Easter eggs at one shot. We got the Thanos copter, which is from the comics.
Sure.
We got Frog Thor, who is very rudely buried underground. I'm still very mad about that. In a jar.
Yeah.
It's very messed up.
I was joking that I thought it might be... like the Loki, or sorry, the kid Loki, the one that says that he killed Thor.
Yeah, he turned him into, that's what I thought.
Yeah,
too.
I thought it would be funny if that's like what he actually did.
Yeah.
But also someone said that scene in Ragnarok where Thor's talking about how
turned him into Snake.
Yeah, and he picks him up and then he stabs him. He's like, what if that was when he killed him?
Yeah.
Yeah.
That'd have been funny. But yeah, that's pretty much where we got all the Easter eggs. And then there was this one scene that's still so weird in episode 1. Where Loki steals the little temp pad and he escapes for a little bit within the TVA, and a girl walks out of the office and she looks exactly like Peggy Carter.
Yeah.
So nothing was ever said about that. I don't think Peggy's either being, prosecuted by the TVA or like
maybe she
working
is.
for them,
I mean, Captain America, I've been saying this from the start. He was not supposed to stay in that area of time, and maybe, I don't know, maybe there's a reality where she was pruned.
Yeah, maybe.
Yeah.
So, but that was very, very weird. I don't even know if that's really considered an Easter egg or something that looked very close to her.
There was apparently a ton of Easter eggs, but like I said, I'm kind of glad we weren't looking into it because, I mean, 90% of the time, all those theories have nothing to do with anything. They're just there for
fun now. They're
just there for fans. Yeah. But I think that like we were able to just kind of like get on and enjoy the ride, especially in something that has so much to do with time travel, which you don't love to begin with.
Yeah.
So I think that this was the best way for us to watch this.
Definitely.
Yeah.
What else do we have? Oh, Sylvie. Should we talk about her?
Sylvie. I love Sylvie.
I liked her a lot. I think her character kind of like slowed down a little bit. In episodes 4 and 5.
Oh,
4 and
really?
5?
I thought it was just how 6 ended. I didn't like that.
Maybe it was just 5. But no, I thought she was a really strong character. And I did like how she ends up being the one in the right because the TVA is, pretty much taking away free will. But I don't know. Her dynamic with Loki just kind of got a little bit weird in my opinion.
I still think it's a little strange. I mean, I know it's not incest.
Because
it feels like it somewhere in my bones.
I think the first initial like Loki getting feelings for her was absolutely hilarious because you're like, this is the
I didn't believe it. I did not believe it. You said it to me while we were watching the episode.
For sure making
we were watching the episode and I was like, no, they're gonna be like best friends. It was, and then obviously we have that scene at the end where like they cause that branch in the timeline and I'm like, oh my god,
they did it.
They're gonna fall in love.
Yeah, and like again, this is at first for that scene, this is absolutely hilarious because you're like, he is the biggest narcissist to ever walk. Well, I guess the universe, but like, you know what I mean? Like to literally fall in love with a variant of yourself who happens to be a girl is just hilarious.
He loves himself.
He loves himself that much, even though that goes against kind of his character dynamic that he's building on.
Yeah, do you remember that interview I showed you of Tom Hiddleston? Like he's being interviewed before Loki comes out and someone asked them like, is he gonna have a love interest? And he's kind of like playing it off and he goes, well, they always say like the first person you have to love is yourself. Yeah. Like, and it's so funny in context now. Yeah.
As it went on, I think it got kind of weird because I didn't think the story needed it. I thought Sylvie's like sassiness kind of played it off well in some points, and then it also made it like playfully awkward in some other points. You know what I mean? Because I couldn't tell what was flirting back and what was her being oblivious.
I do think that it was necessary. Like, I disagree.
Mm-hmm.
I don't think that there would have been almost any situation that would have worked better than them being love interests.
Mm-hmm.
Just because, like, even as, like, a sisterly regard, like, he still never would have given up his not morals, I guess, like, Loki's version of morals for just someone that he kind of cared about. Like, you've seen him let down Thor time and time again. Like, it couldn't be a sisterly love. It couldn't be, like, a best friend. It had to be true romantic love. But I don't know. I don't know how they would ever change it at this point. I don't think they can.
Oh no, I agree, and it's obviously here to stay. But
yeah,
it's just weird now because now it feels like Loki's only motive is to finding her, when we're like, no, like we broke the multiverse, like we should probably have to deal with that first.
No, he mentions it, like when he's talking to Mobius, he's like, we messed up, she messed up,
right?
Like kind of situation. Like he knows that he shouldn't have supported her, you know, but like. It was even kind of sad seeing that part where she's like, how are we on different sides of this? And he goes, because you're a person that can't trust and I can't be trusted. And it's true, you know, like at the end of the day, she's been like let down by everything in life. Like her existence
is just for this moment.
Well, her existence was literally like deemed unfit for the universe. Like they like literally looked at her and went, oh, you're not the right version. We're going to prune you. And she's lived with that her entire life. Like she never had family. She never had anything. So she doesn't trust anyone. And then Loki, he's let every single person down. Like every person down. You know what I mean? But I guess he never let himself down. And that's why. That's why it works.
He kind of let himself down a couple times.
He was still always fighting for himself.
Isn't it crazy that Thanos gave him the Infinity Stones in the first place?
It blows my mind. It blows my mind that Thanos
I always think back to that. I'm like, wait, he just said, hey, take this and go get another one for me?
The original Avengers, that was literally the first invasion of Thanos.
Yeah.
That was his team.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Like, that blows my mind.
Yeah. Super weird.
Well, because, like, I think the CGI on him had been super weird in that first movie.
Loki?
No, on Thanos. Like, they showed him the end credit scene, and he was
looked
almost
like Grimace.
Well, he looked like reddish, almost, you know, like reddish purple.
Yeah.
And now he's a very pleasant lilac. But, yeah. No, I mean, I really liked Sylvie as a character. I think that it's interesting that she managed to survive for as long as she did.
Yeah.
Obviously, I know that she was, like, living at the ends of whatever worlds and stuff like that. I thought
living in apocalypses.
But like, how did she get there? Like, how was she smart enough to realize that? Like, how she was what, like five or six? Yeah. Like, it was a really young age, and I know that she's supposed to be like so intelligent and so different from all the other Lokis because she doesn't want to rule. She wants
strictly because she's a girl.
But like literally because she's a girl, she just doesn't want the throne. She's in it for more than just the throne. But like, how was she smart enough to do that? Like, how was she smart enough to do all that?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it was, pretty weird, honestly. And it's funny too to think because, like you said, like she was pruned before he existed. It's weird to think about her growing up in
the
Apocalypse,
ends of time,
like actually growing older. Because how is time moving like that if you're always hopping, to different places?
You know, that's a good argument because I was even thinking earlier how I guess if you're moving through time, you don't age because obviously you have all the agents of the TVA who are Lokis, you know, or not Lokis, sorry, variants. And I was like, oh yeah, I guess if you're just moving through time, you don't age in each of the timelines. But yeah, she definitely ages. Yeah, so it's kind of weird. And because when she's going to these apocalypses, it's an apocalypse. Like, it's not like a couple year apocalypse. It's like she's going as these places are ending. So I guess it works for her though because they're gods. They're only ever really supposed to age slowly and then age. Like, I'm assuming that in my timeline of how gods and immortals age, you like stay in like your prime for forever and then suddenly you get old. Yeah. You know what I mean? Because there's always a point that you die. Do. It's not even like get old. Well, no, like his dad was old. His mom was older. Yeah. You know? Like they get old eventually, but I feel like you stay like 30 for eons. Yeah. Yeah. Should talk about Mobius. Oh, well, yeah. I mean, what about him, though? I just thought Owen Wilson was hilarious. He's hilarious. I was, like, kind of nervous at first when he first got casted, because I'm just like, I don't really know how his type of acting would fit in a show like this. Because he's such a comedian. Yeah, like a literal, like, comedian. Just, like, he's on screen and I'm already kind of laughing before he said anything. He just has such a way of talking. Like, he's so particular. Yeah. I'm very disappointed we didn't get any wows, but, wow. But his
interactions with Tom Hiddleston were just so great. They were so much fun to listen to.
Oh my gosh. The scene in episode 5 where he's going back to the TVA, you know, to like take it down from the
favorite.
that literally melted my heart.
Why?
I don't know. It was just like so sweet because she's never had, you know, a family or anything, and that is such a dad move.
Neville moment.
That is such like a dad like moment, you know. I just thought it was so sweet, and like obviously Loki and him are best friends, and he gets so bummed when Loki like betrays him, and like he was disappointed in him, like disappointed. I don't know. I loved how he worked with the Lokis. Yeah. Like they were perfect. It was a good casting, I think.
I think Alligator Loki was obviously the best casting of the entire show.
Him biting off that other one's hand was.
Can you Photoshop him right here in our thumbnail? Please.
Yeah, sure.
I need an alligator Loki right here.
Sure.
And then Loki horns on both of us.
Okay, well, I'll do that.
Okay, sweet.
But, yeah. I mean, I was going to say something. Oh, kind of an Easter egg, actually. So, in episode 5, when he's, like, taking down the TVA and getting everyone on his side, versus being on the, what's her name? Judge
Renslayer.
Judge Renslayer.
Ravonna Renslayer.
When they're going back to, like, the actual version of her in the real timeline where the principal and everything, so that school, someone mentioned, could be Spider-Man school.
It was in Ohio.
Yeah, but the poster for it was, like, a Go Ducks or whatever it is. Whatever mascot it is that was on that poster is also the poster that they have in, like, Far From Home. Or not Far From Home. Yes, Far From Home. Which doesn't make a lot of sense, because now that you're saying that, you're definitely saying it's Ohio.
It said Ohio in 2012 or 2018 or something like that. So, I don't know. Sorry to debunk that.
No, it's okay.
But she's interesting, though, because the whole time we were kind of wondering, is, Ravonna Renslayer, is she aware of what's going on? Or is she under a control or mindless, kind of like the rest of the TVA agents?
So she definitely was aware, but she was like a firm believer.
She wasn't aware they were variants, though.
I think that...
Maybe in the back of her head she had a feeling.
No, I don't think... She was probably one of the first ones, so every person that she's brought in, she knew was a variant. Mobius was probably someone she brought in. Mm-hmm. She knew that. Makes sense. Yeah, like, I mean, she's the one, like, the head honcho, which is kind of weird because the way that it was all described, she seemed like one of the head people. Does that make sense? Mm-hmm. But we never saw anyone else. We only saw her. Mm-hmm. And just, like, even how she is talking about, like, the TVA in the final 2 episodes about how, like, you have to keep the order and the only person that deserves free will is the person
in charge.
Yeah. Like, you would hope that she would change her mind, but she was so brainwashed, I guess, is the best way to phrase it, into being a firm believer. It was very weird. So
at the beginning, once we got introduced to her, I knew from the comics that that's the love interest of Kang. So going into it, we weren't sure if she was a part of it. And again, if she knew, what was happening. Or if she was being brainwashed the same way. Because I think that's a storyline, is where she gets pissed at Kang because he was either controlling her, brainwashing her, or betrayed her, or something like that. And from here, it's kind of hard to tell where it left off. Because at the end, Miss Minutes gives her some information to help her go find someone.
Yeah.
But if...
Well, she mentions, like, that she's going to...
find whoever's actually in charge, because she doesn't know. And never questioned it, which is funny because, I mean, she thought the robots were actually the timekeepers.
And she didn't even flinch when, like, they ended up being fake. Like, that's what I'm saying. Like, she's hardcore, like, brainwashed. Yeah. But, like, almost through Miss Minutes, I think, is one of the most... She's the most confusing character for me because I didn't like her from the start. I didn't think
she was actually going to be a thing. I thought she was only in the little videos from the TVA.
Oh, yeah.
And then she was, hopping around on, what's his name? Loki's desk. And
yeah, like an AI.
Are you real?
She was so annoying. I didn't like her at all, like, from the start. And then, like I told you, in the last episode, when she's, like, giving the ultimatum to Loki and Sylvie, I just thought that her whole thing was so unnecessary. Yeah. Like, I mean, yeah, I think you said it that you believe that it's to show how much power Kang really had, like, that he could make all of that really happen. But I just feel like I'm confused. Like, I don't even think that she really communicated with He Who Remains. Mm-hmm. You know what I mean?
And that's what's weird, because it's like, is she just his assistant? Or whose exact side is she on? You know what I mean? Is she created with the TVA?
Yeah,
as just a part, like an artificial intelligence, like a Jarvis for the TVA kind of thing?
That's how I assume she is.
But at the end, she gave Renslayer information to help go find someone.
Yeah,
but
she
this is confusing because obviously He Who Remains was killed.
Dies.
So it's like, was she going to him and find Sylvie?
Or King the Conqueror.
Or is she going to King the Conqueror or a variant of him? And then it's like, how are you
Oh,
then traveling between the
with,
multiverses?
like, the variant that maybe that Loki ended up at.
Yeah, so that was pretty confusing, but it's interesting to see what we'll get from her next. I thought she was kind of cool, honestly, as a
Judge
character.
Renslayer?
Mm-hmm.
I didn't like her. I don't like people that have like the brainwashy kind of people, like the ones that like don't ever question anything and like they wholeheartedly and firmly believe in something. Like, I don't like those kinds of characters. I find them uninteresting and annoying, and most of the time
they're never brainwashed because they wanted to be.
But most of the time they end up being a villain.
Yeah.
And they always have like they always have a redemption arc at the end where like they finally see the other side and then they help the right side kind of, and then they die. Yeah. Like, that's always how that kind of character goes, and I just find it repetitive.
I feel that.
So, and I feel like she's going to go down that route where she's always going to end up like thinking you're on her side, and then she's not. She's still brainwashed. Yeah. It's just annoying.
I could see that.
Yeah. But I might be judging too harshly. We don't know yet, but I feel like that's the kind of character that they were setting her out to be.
Yeah, I can definitely. And with her too, I can only see her really appearing in Loki 2, the season 2.
Right.
You know what I mean? I don't see her really taking a place in any of the other movies
in the
unless
universe.
She does actually team up and become, a queen for a king or something like that.
Sure.
So.
Yeah, it would be interesting if she ends up having to battle herself, like since they did kind of show us like a little tidbit of the real version that's supposed to be her, like, and that's a superhero version. That would be interesting, I guess. I don't know. Yeah, I guess Renslayer and Miss Minutes, I didn't like them.
That's funny.
They were kind of annoying.
Yeah.
They were just annoying. Loved Mobius, though.
Yeah.
Yeah. And, what's her name?
Alligator Loki.
No, I have a hard time with numbers.
It was Alligator Loki.
No, it was the lady, like the
Sylvie.
The one that helps out Mobius.
Oh, I don't think she got a name. She was just
she has a number code.
Yeah, BC15 or something like that.
Okay, I thought it was a D.
Something like that.
But she was cool.
Yeah.
Yeah, I love when like people learn. That's one of the ones I do like the opposite version.
When you get unbrainwashed.
Yep. Yeah, the ones that are like completely on the other team with like barely any information. I love those characters. Yeah. Like, those are great. I guess I like the easily swayable people.
You relate to them?
No. No,
you're right.
I don't know. Maybe I like easily manipulated people. I think they're funny.
Okay. Let's do Loki and Okay.
I guess that's all our thoughts, really. Like, I thought we'd have more, but I think we had talked a lot, actually.
It's funny because, like, as complex as this one was, it was very easy to talk about.
Sure.
And just, like, straightforward is not the right word, but like,
it is.
It was pretty straightforward.
Yeah.
So.
I mean, there wasn't, like I said, our other reviews are also talking a lot about, like, the social commentary
and the psyche of what's going on in their heads.
And like these ones, it was so much just plot, so like all we have to talk about is
what happened,
the plot. There isn't much else to say. I'm glad that Loki had a little bit of a redemption arc. I guess like that's what I will say about his psyche, and I get why it would have to do with Sylvie.
And I'm looking forward to what comes next, because like we said, this has to pretty much set up the multiverse of madness. I'm pretty sure Tom Hiddleston was already confirmed to be in it, but obviously now it's going to be, him, Scarlet Witch. And I think what's interesting, too, is that they're kind of setting these things up in two different ways, because we have, like, the cosmic magical people going one way, and then we have, Sam, Bucky, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
The War Machine, those people all kind of going in a very grounded on-Earth government kind of way.
Yeah.
And it's going to be funny because these things are going to be happening simultaneously.
Right.
And the world's pretty much ending up in, in space. And they're down fighting over, like in armor wars. They're going to be fighting over stolen weapons and stuff like that. Right. So it's kind of funny because they may get brought in at some point.
The juxtaposition is very nice.
Yeah, exactly.
Because, like, they had to do it this way. Because, like, obviously they want maybe to, like, be able to talk about, like, the social kind of stuff.
And it's hard to keep everybody on screen all at the same time. Like, Endgame was obviously done very well. But, yeah, you can't have...
There's a reason why there was separate movies for each hero. You know what I mean? Like, and then we would come together every few years for an Avengers thing. And that's definitely going to still be their like, thing. And now they included series, which makes it even more fun, I think.
Exactly. So, and I love how much we can actually get out of these series. I can't remember the exact like number, but apparently like all the content we're getting in 2021, so movies, series, and all that stuff, is apparently the equivalent of everything we've gotten in the entire Infinity Saga.
Wow, I guess that makes sense because
yeah.
there's a lot of cartoons too.
Yeah. Well, so the cartoons, obviously some of these are about 40 minutes a pop.
Sure.
And then everything is just loaded because nothing released last year. Does that make sense? So all the movies, like Doctor Strange was supposed to be out by now, if you didn't know that, which is just painful to think about. It was supposed to come out in May.
I forgot
and then
about
COVID
that.
derailed
why
everything.
Why did you remind me
I know,
that?
it hurts. But
wow, I totally forgot. Yeah, I mean, I'm really excited about Spider-Man.
Yeah,
like,
same.
I feel like 100% it's gonna be with like Tobey Maguire and Andrew Garfield, and it's gonna be so cool. Like,
and the coolest thing about this Spider-Man coming up is I feel like Into the Spider-Verse was just so special for everyone because it was like animated movies can be that level up. You
it
know
took
what I
me
mean?
a
Like,
while
it can
to
be
finally
very
watch
well done.
Into the Spider-Verse.
Yeah.
I remember you loved it,
Oh,
and
yeah.
like it took me a while because I didn't think that an animated movie could be that good, and it was beautiful. Like, it was beautifully done, and it was just like so impactful.
Yeah.
Like, it really was. Like, it has definitely its place, like, in the Marvel universe.
Oh, it's got to be
So-
one of my favorite superhero movies, honestly.
Yeah.
Like, that's saying a lot.
Yeah.
But I do think it was that. But after we saw the success of that, we were like, it's only a matter of time before we finally get
Spider-Verse.
a Spider-Verse into
Yeah.
Marvel, especially because of, what was happening with, Sony and stuff like that.
And
We have
also because
Venom.
we were already, like, we'd already seen the list of, like,
Yeah.
what's going on in this phase 4. We'd already seen that there was a multiverse of madness.
Yeah.
So we had to assume. Like, we had to assume, you know what I mean?
So, I think that has the potential to be one of the best movies by Marvel.
Multiverse of Madness?
Oh, well, Multiverse of Madness is going to be a horror movie for those that don't know.
I'm hyped.
So that's what they're saying. Like, this is going to be like borderline terrifying at some points. Like,
I feel like
you can
it'll
say
definitely-
horror a couple different ways.
I think
but,
it's
like,
going to have a lot of pull for, like, the What If series. You know what I mean? Like, I think that's why they need to make the What If series to kind of, like, give us that horror context.
Yeah.
Because obviously, I mean, we look at it now and yeah, like, I guess a lot of the things are horrifying in a way. But, like, for it to be considered a horror...
I think it's going to be the effects. I think the effects are going to be... Because that one scene where... I think... The Chosen One?
It would even...
Who's the one in Doctor Strange?
Ancient One?
The Ancient One. When she takes him through, like, the different worlds and stuff. Like, how that was kind of creepy. You know what I mean? Like, with the hands in the face. And
No, yeah. I would say it's going to lean more on, like, the psychological aspect.
I can see that, too.
You know, like, I mean, even, like, Wanda's children, like, yelling at her from some dimension. Like, I feel like that's going to be pulled into this somehow. And it's creepy, you know? Like, you can't... It's an out-of-context voice.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Or, like, even just the ultimatums that they're going to have to deal with. And, like, the ultimate power that they're also dealing with. Like, these people are incredibly powerful. They have no limit, almost. And they can destroy the world. And they're kind of all fighting for different things. Like, it'll be scary in that way.
Yeah. I'm so excited. I hope it's terrifying.
I hope so, too.
I hope it
comes out during Halloween time.
I don't know when it's coming out, actually.
Well, no, because it got moved,
I think it might be next March.
I think it would be really cool
For
closer
Halloween.
to Halloween.
Yeah.
If they have to move it, you know?
Yeah. But yeah, we have a lot. There's Shang-Chi coming out soon.
I'm
We just
really
watched
excited
Black
about
Widow.
that.
If you didn't watch it, I highly recommend watching it.
And that's going to be our next episode, for sure.
But yeah, blew my expectations out of the water.
These were the two things that I was most excited for that
Yeah.
you felt the most, like, indifferent towards, I guess.
Yeah,
And we
we were happily surprised both
I'm
ways. So.
so fulfilled in
Yeah.
both areas. Yeah.
But,
and I'm so happy that you liked it too.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah,
No, I
that
loved
way
it.
we can both enjoy it.
Yeah. And then Eternals, which I'm slowly growing more and more interested in.
I'm not. But, like, I'm sure my mind will change.
Well, especially you have to think of it in the context now. Like, if
No,
the Eternals didn't
yeah.
step in during Infinity War and we're getting introduced now, they're gonna have to step in.
Well, and
for
I get
Kang,
that
you know what I
because,
mean?
like, I mean, so you have to clarify something for me. The Eternals, is one of them, like, the Collector and all those people? Okay,
He
these
is
are different people.
The Collector, I really don't. 'Cause the
Him
Collector's
and his
weird.
brother, the Collector and the... What's his face? They've both been in the movies so
Yeah.
far.
I don't really know about him, honestly, because I know he's like a cosmic being, kind of. But he's
that's,
not.
I think, the term,
he's
cosmic
not.
being.
What's it called? He's not eternal.
Okay.
So
I mean, I'm sure I'll end up liking it.
Yeah.
You know, I still
It's pretty-
have yet to be disappointed by anything Marvel's come out with. I like the
or
things.
Dark World.
I like the things most people. I love Dark World. I love Dark World.
And you know what? I rewatched Iron Man 3 with my mom the other day. I actually like that more than I thought I did.
Iron Man 3 is actually probably my least favorite, but I still like it. But I still like
The fact that it ended up being a Christmas movie in the back the entire time was just absolutely hilarious to me.
I have to rewatch it
Because
because I remember some Christmas scenes, but I didn't
yeah.
really remember.
But, oh no, it's cool too. I mean, this is kind of unrelated, but the fake villain in Iron Man 3 was the Mandarin.
Yeah.
We're actually getting the real Mandarin in Shang-Chi and the Ten Rings.
I'm excited for Shang-Chi. It looks so good. Like, all of the, like, press that they've done for it and the trailers, it looks amazing. That's probably the thing that I am most excited for, that I knew nothing about.
Yeah.
That I knew nothing about.
I feel like I really don't know too much about him either, except for the Ten Rings, which, again, is, I'm pretty sure, the Mandarin side of, you know, this type of kung fu-ish army kind of thing. You know what I mean?
Okay.
So I have to look more into it, but... That's what I've gotten out of it.
I mean, you will always be the researcher, and I will always be the not researcher.
I'm pretty sure there's a dragon in the movie, which is very important.
That is important.
We haven't seen a dragon yet.
No, we haven't. And that's important. Like, it really is. I'm not saying that ironically. But, I mean, it's just, they've been doing a really good job. Yeah. Like, I think that series was one thing that everyone was a little bit hesitant to see, just because we're used to the production value of the movies, you know what I mean? And so everyone was kind of like, oh, TV shows, those are hard to do, but like they've still just been putting few episodes with huge impact, and like as long as they can kind of keep going down that road, like focusing on the story versus just like pushing out content almost, I think they're gonna do great.
Agreed. And it's all pushing something next, you know what I mean? Like everything
There's
that's happening
leads
into something else, which
for
is
this TV show.
awesome, because it's like, I mean, you know, we don't get anything that's like a single story, you know what I mean? Like even Black Widow, they take that and they put that into the timeline, but it's not like a one shot, this means nothing, which is just cool. I
can't wait to talk about Black Widow.
Same.
Yeah. But no, you're right. It's all relevant, and it's relevant to Phase 4. It's not just like relevant to the general story for background. It's all relevant for what we're going to be seeing. And I think like it's interesting because like there's a few series that I'm like, how are you going to make this relevant?
Right.
But I'm sure they've found a way. They've already done it. We just are here for the ride.
Just need more alligator Loki.
You really love him. Oh, actually, that's the only thing that I'll mention, kind of to close this out, is I do think that sword that Kid Loki gave Loki is going to come back and be relevant for some reason.
I hope so.
That's a real sword that Loki actually has, like, in mythology and in like the comics. So it makes no sense that it would be left with Sylvie unless Sylvie picks it up.
Oh yeah, I forgot you mentioned that it was left there.
Yeah.
But yeah, no, he had it for one scene where he didn't even touch Elias with it. He
didn't even like make it go on fire or anything.
Yeah.
Like nothing cool.
So
I don't know. And also, side note, I liked all like the like biblical metaphors throughout the entire last episode. Like that was all really just funny to see, I guess, in the context of what we were doing and where we were at. Just like him with the apple, you know, the flaming sword. Intriguing.
Yeah, and I think Loki's even kind of like the devil in some ways, right?
He gives, in mythology, he gives birth to Hela. Like he is a beginner of Ragnarok in most like situations. So yeah, he could be considered like a villainous figure always.
Well, even just like the horns, you know what I mean? Like in that first scene in the church, like Sylvie, they were saying you're pointing at the devil. And
I'm still thinking that is somehow Mephisto. Like I'm standing by that. I know you say no, but I'm standing by that. Can't change my mind.
All right.
Yeah.
Hopefully we'll find the aerospace engineer too.
Oh, yeah. Yeah, baby. I'm sure we will, sweetie.
It keeps me up at night.
We're not gonna... Okay, yeah, we will.
But yeah, I think that's all I got.
That's all I got too. So, how do we end this again?
Please stand by.
Please stand by.
Hopefully not for as long as you stood by last time.
Thanks for standing by, though.
Yeah, thanks for standing by for a very long time.
We appreciated your standby time. All right. You're a smart dude. You have good opinions.
I'm just gonna put my hand where the alligator Loki's gonna go.
Okay. You're so silly. You're a silly goose. Maybe you're a silly alligator Loki.